What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Lord podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Wright, joined, as always, by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing, man?
Steve, going good over here. Had some big news in our family this weekend. My sister just got engaged.
Oh, yeah, that is... Yeah, wow. Did you expect that, or...?
We knew it was coming. We didn't find out till this weekend that he was going to do it, but we knew. They've been together for 2 years. He bought a house, and they've been living there together for a year, so it was expected, just unsure exactly when.
Yeah, that's fair. That's cool, though.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Probably won't be for another, year and a half at this point, maybe 2 years for everything going on, and how probably difficult it is to get a venue now.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only do you have the limits as far as how many people can be in a room, but you also have everyone that couldn't do their wedding this summer is pushing to next summer, and it just snowballs from there.
Yeah, but regardless, still exciting stuff. I'm sure there'll be engagement parties and things of that nature coming up to try to get people together in a safe way when possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exciting over here. How's everything on your end?
Less exciting, I guess. Yeah, not a lot to go on. I have an animal in my basement. I don't know what, but something was down there.
Okay, I thought you were going to say your wife bought a pet and is surprising you with it or something.
No, this is an unwanted creature. We'll see what's happening. We had an exterminator coming out just to check for spot entry points and stuff like that.
Interesting. Is it you're just hearing movement, or are you hearing actual noises?
Oh, I'm hearing stuff I was hearing what sounded like paper moving.
Huh.
I didn't know what it was, so I went down the stairs, and of course it stopped. So I just stood on the stairs for a while, and then I heard it behind me, which would be under our kitchen. So I banged my fist against the wall, and then I never heard it again. And I went down there, and some of the insulation and the plastic, that loose plastic that's around it, was ajar. So I'm assuming the plastic sound I heard was that plastic moving around. Or the paper sound I heard.
What are some common rodents near you?
Your usuals, your mice, raccoons. I assume rats, raccoon. There's a potential for this squirrel to be doing it. We have a really feisty squirrel.
It's getting colder, and he didn't get his own place in a tree set up, so he's making do over the winter in your basement.
Yeah, I'm assuming mouse.
Okay.
Which is no big deal. I don't care about that, but it's more of we want all the access points shut down. I don't care about a mouse being in the house. I can take care of a mouse, but
rather find that out now and find the access points.
Exactly. But
doing this at halftime here, the first game on Monday, so we will see. I still got a couple games on the line here in this game and the next game.
Yeah, busy Monday. It's kind of nice. I mean, not abnormal. They always have the doubleheader the first week of the season, right? So it's been done, but I mean, a 4:30 game's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's nice to have them earlier, right? I mean, for us, it's 5 and 8 here on the East Coast. I think the Ballers were saying how it was a 2:00 game for them, which is interesting for a Monday night.
Yeah, that's a shame for work productivity. What can you do? I guess
not gonna do much, but I guess after 2:00, most people I'm sure could probably swing an early day.
Yeah, they can manage.
Mm-hmm.
So you ready to jump into some waivers here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we'll start with some streaming candidates per the usual at the quarterback position. Carson Wentz, still 60% owned, which is solid ownership given his play, but he's got the Giants this week and put up some points against Baltimore. That's pretty intriguing, right?
Intriguing, but we definitely have to worry about the injuries around him, not necessarily to him, which most of the time, recent years, it's been Carson getting hurt, but now he seems to be currently one of 2 of the projected starters going into the year on offense that's healthy. It's just him and the center, Kelce, Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce. So might get Deshaun Jackson back this week. I think that's the real only hope. I don't think Rager comes back for another week, probably. But no Miles Sanders for this week, possibly one more, and Ertz is expected to miss a month here. So weapons are going to be limited, which could be rough. But if anybody's had experience playing with a lot of practice squad guys, it was Carson last year. So I think, if you are in a tough spot, it's not a bad stream option.
Yeah, absolutely. The matchup is there. So yeah, that could work out well. And I mean, even like taking this a step further in dynasty leagues, could become a decent. Well, he probably is, but he could become a further decent buy low candidate. It's hard to find success with the lack of weapons that he's had, and he's got to do it 2 years in a row. So his price is only falling. Now you have to roll the dice with whether they keep him or not. I know they got salary cap issues. They just dropped the quarterback, so some things could work out weird there. But the story's been made of he hasn't played well, but there's a pretty good reason for that.
And they got some dead money tied up in him. I think he's got a 5-year deal, but I think at least 3. I think they would still they would have 15 million against the cap if they get out 2 years early. So I think at least 3 years. So probably safe, for a buy. And I think this is a solid window, especially because even though he's playing some bad teams, he's going to be working with nothing weapon wise, but he should get a lot of those back within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And, everyone I think is at this point projected to come back. So could be a nice buy low here to then have someone maybe to ride the end of the season out with. But this week I think it's an interesting option here to play here against the Giants at home. It's a Thursday night game, so you'd get him out of the way and know what you need from the rest of your team.
Yeah, those Thursday night games always worry me because of situations like that. But yeah, I'll take the matchup.
We may have to play him because we just traded for Lamar in one league, in a dynasty league, and Lamar Jackson's on bye. So Wentz may be our option here.
Yeah, I'd be good with that. For a low ownership quarterback, we got Jimmy Garoppolo, only about 30% owned. A tough matchup against New England, but he put up some solid points last night against the Rams.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd trust him this week. I know he looked very good against the Rams, and New England didn't look great either. I'd probably rather play Wentz, but if you're in a situation where you have a deeper bench and you can afford to maybe stash him, see, if that was more than just, one game there against the Rams, because, after this New England game, looks like he gets
You got a lot of tough matchups.
Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Seattle and New Orleans have been, letting up a lot to the quarterback. So it's going to be tough. I don't know that I can give him the opportunity, but in a Superflex league, or a league where there's just not many quarterbacks available, he's not a bad guy to stash if you have room.
Yep, we got Fitzpatrick sitting around 50% owned. He's on a bye this week, so you can't use him this week, but you can grab him up. You could probably get him for nothing right now, given he's on bye if you need a longer term solution. Justin Herbert, 55% owned, so actually owned more than Fitzpatrick. Got Jacksonville this week. That's a pretty good matchup.
He's got a nice little stretch. Got Jacksonville and Denver 2 in a row here. But then Vegas, Miami, the Jets. So 5 games get there that I'm not really scared to play him, and should be, at least against Jacksonville, Vegas, and Miami, 3 games that could be potential shootouts because the other team's offenses can really play well. So I wouldn't mind it in the league that I had Dak Prescott. I ended up throwing in quite a few claims, and we talked about it last week. I ended up getting 4 quarterbacks, and 2 of them were Herbert and Fitzpatrick. So then ended up kind of pairing them up where I can play Fitzpatrick this week and then cut him after that with his bye and see if I can potentially roll with Herbert the rest of the way here.
Yeah, and this is a situation I know we always say, pay $1 or $2 for your quarterbacks. I'd be willing to pay, $5 or $6 for Herbert, given you're getting so many games in a row that you could start him in.
Yeah. And down the stretch, he's got Buffalo and New England, but he does have Atlanta and Denver again. So, and Vegas in the playoffs. I know we don't want to look too far ahead, but Atlanta, Vegas, and Denver for your playoff matchups, currently looks to be good. Obviously, it's even more volatile with the schedule potentially getting changed throughout the year here, though.
Absolutely. And then finally, we have Tannehill, almost 70% owned. What can you say about Tannehill? He's got to be owned at this point, right?
I think he's a must start, but he does have a very tough matchup against Pittsburgh this week. I mean, this is kind of the ultimate stay in the flames, right? Do you risk sitting him and having him continue to play well like he has? Or do you just roll with it and see what you got against a really tough Pittsburgh defense?
Yeah, it's a tough decision. It might be one of them kind of average weeks for him, which would still be fine. But yeah, the upside seems to be capped in this matchup against Pittsburgh.
Yeah. He's got a tough little stretch. Pittsburgh, Cincy, but then Chicago, Indy, Baltimore, Indy. So
yeah,
very tough stretch coming up for him. But he's been playing great, so this will be really a good test to see if he can really keep it going.
that is fair. Well, we're going to move on to running backs. I got a little bit of breaking news for you. Raheem Mostert, high ankle sprain, most likely going to IR.
I mean, I guess that's a 3-week IR, right?
Probably, yeah. It doesn't specify, but I would assume so.
McKinnon season again, baby.
I know. Bullet dodged on our part on that Mostert trade conversation.
Oh, man.
But yeah, McKinnon and Hasty. He was out there a fair bit yesterday. He got some work.
We have him on the one roster that I mentioned with Wentz and Jackson. And we are in dire need of players because that's a very, very deep roster. There's not much on the waivers, so Hasty may be in our future for potentially starting a player too.
Maybe, but so let's tackle those two, Will, real quick for redraft. For redraft, are you bidding on Hasty at all?
I'm a little worried that he only got those carries because Wilson was inactive. Right? If we know Mostert going into a week is not going to play, I would imagine Wilson's active. And he probably gets more carries than Hasty. And if you're betting on the third running back that, is only getting carries because another running back is hurt, I mean, I'd bid, maybe $1 or $2 on him, but I'm not going to spend up. I would maybe try to sneak in and get Wilson because people may not realize that the reason he's inactive is because they're going to use him as the Mostert replacement. So I would probably want to try to get Jeff Wilson. Don't really want to play either of them, but if I'm going to play one, I think I'd rather play Jeff Wilson.
Yep, agreed. You can flip a few bucks. I don't know if you can get Hasty for free, given he looked good, but yeah, a few bucks should do it. McKinnon, we don't have his ownership here, considering we weren't prepared to talk about him, but I'd imagine it's probably 50-ish%. I'm assuming you'd definitely be willing to bid up for McKinnon.
And I'll give you the number. It's actually 71% currently.
Oh, wow.
On Yahoo.
Yeah, I was expecting more drops after, last week not doing very well.
Too. I would, especially if we expecting at least 3-week miss for the for Mostert. Their bye is coming up in 5 weeks. So if you may have, a little more stretch, and they got New England, Seattle, Green Bay for what would be expected for the IR stint for Mostert. And then you have New Orleans in the bye. So maybe if it is truly a high ankle sprain, they don't want to rush Mostert back. Maybe you get 4 weeks before the bye week out of McKinnon here.
Yeah, maybe. That's worth a lot. I mean, right now you're at a pivotal time where you're making a push to the playoffs. That's 30% or more, I think, maybe 40, given it's San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you have the bid to spend on him, I think if he's available, you're going to have to spend at least 20, but you're probably looking at closer to 30. Especially if the news comes out and it's solidified that Mostert is going to be down for 3+ weeks. You're getting a guy, while it's not the easiest matchups, New England, Seattle, Green Bay, it's, still the offense that Kyle Shanahan is running. And you always want to play running backs, especially the lead back in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. So to detour a little bit to the other running backs here, we got DeAndre Swift finally broke out. Ownership up at 75%, so not available for a lot of you. But if he's out there, he's a must own. And Will, would you say a must start against Atlanta?
I think so. Yeah, the way they're playing him, it seems like Carrion's phased out, and it's AP gets some carries, probably starts the game, and Swift comes in to kind of close it out. But, it seemed like, from what I could tell of what I saw that game, Peterson had the whole first drive and then kind of worked in a little bit. But from there, Swift was kind of the guy. It's like second quarter on. So imagine he's owned in most leagues, but if you're in the league that someone cut him because there's so many Fulgham and Chase Claypool last week, and they needed a guy to cut, so they ended up cutting bait. He's a guy to own, right? And this could be the stretch where he really starts to turn it on. You're probably going to have to bid. There's another guy that you're probably looking at in 30 plus range.
Yeah, most likely. And then move on to another rookie and his comrade, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. 64% and 3% ownership, respectively, on a bye this week, but Ingram was hurt. I think the bye kind of helps him with that situation, gives him a week off to rest. Are you bidding on either of these two?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't really know how much I'd want to bid because it seems like it's an ankle injury, but early reports today show that Ingram has a chance to play week 8 after they come back from the bye. So I don't know if they say exactly what it is, right? If it's a high ankle, then you're probably not playing coming right off the bye. But if it's just, an ankle tweak, 2 weeks could be enough for him to get healthy and just muddy the backfield up once again. I wouldn't mind bidding on either. I imagine Dobbins is going to be the one that costs more. But if you can get Gus Edwards for, between 5 and 10, it's not the worst. I mean, you're eating him for a week, which kind of stinks. So maybe you just let it go, don't bid, and then if he's still available after waivers, you can scoop him up for free and just kind of see what happens as we progress and hear more about Ingram.
Yeah, I think that would be my strategy as well. Just let the waivers go and pick him up for free after. I mean, he gets usage already with Ingram playing. So even if it's the Dobbins show, Gus is still going to get, enough work to potentially be relevant. Your tough part is that he comes out of the bye, then they play Pittsburgh and then Indy and then New England and then Tennessee and then Pittsburgh again. So it's not like he has the easiest stretch of defenses to play, but I mean, running backs are hard to come by, right? So yeah, I'd love to grab either of them.
You take what you can get in that situation.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Next up, we've got Jeremy McNichols. So this is going to be more of a stash play because you're not going to play him likely this week, but he is the backup to Derrick Henry, only 1% owned, and he's got Pittsburgh this week. So he did flash. He had 5 carries for about 50 yards, 2 catches for about 10 yards, so looked good. I don't know that you can play him, but he's a nice handcuff to Derrick Henry likely, and could be a decent stash if something happened to Henry. Even saying all that, I don't know how much I would bid on him, though.
Nothing. I mean, if this was a really deep league and I had a spot to burn and there was really nothing out there to add, I'd take the shot just in case, Henry goes down or something. But, I mean, with the bye week still lurking, it's too early for me to be grabbing up handcuffs just to be grabbing them up. And I don't see the value there. It's going to be hard to predict any kind of game he's going to have or fantasy success in.
Yeah, agreed. This next one's interesting, though. Boston Scott. Looks like Sanders, they said, with a knee. They didn't say specifically. I would imagine it's, maybe a light sprain because the expectation is he misses this week, possibly 2 weeks. I would venture to guess it will be 2 because they have a Thursday night game this week against the Giants. They play Dallas next Sunday, and then they have the bye. So my guess is they will sit him for the next 2 weeks, use the bye to get in the third week there, and bring him back for the stretch run after that. So Boston Scott, you get likely the Giants this week and the Cowboys next week. Solid matchups. How much you bidding on a guy like that has a lot of opportunity for 2 weeks, likely?
I think a lot. I mean, probably up over 30%. And the reason being, like you said, you got 2 weeks of them, it seems, and you got good matchups those 2 weeks. But more importantly, he's a pass catcher, and you just lost Ertz. So there's no one there. Somebody's got to catch the ball, and we saw this last year from Boston Scott. He had value while Miles Sanders was there because everyone was gone. I'd be, you're the Eagles guy here, Will, but I'd be willing to bet that the injuries this year are worse now than they were last year, because I think Ertz was still playing at the end of the year last year, right?
Ertz was, and the biggest thing is all their weapons got hurt, but their line for the most part was intact. While this year started with the line all being hurt and all of their weapons being healthy, and now all of their weapons are hurt. So, like I mentioned at the top, you only have 2 starters that are healthy. So that's what's rough. But yeah, weapon-wise, I mean, you may have Deshaun Jackson back. Other than that, Greg Ward's probably your most tenured offensive weapon.
Yeah, so that to me would lead me to bid a fair bit. I mean, you're going to be dumping off a lot when your line's not good. You have no other pass catching options, so maybe he lines up in the slot some. I mean, the sky's the limit, and he has some good matchups here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at somewhere between 20 and 30, and it's tough to want to bid that much for likely a 2-week player, but I think it depends where you're at, right? If you're, a team that's winning and you're, what are we, week 6 here, you're 4-2 or better, you're probably, it's probably not worth it to spend that much unless you really need a guy to plug in. But if you're kind of on the brink, you're 2-4, maybe even 1-5 and really trying to get a couple wins, bidding up for him, he could be a guy that could get you back into the race, for 20% of your budget.
Okay, and finally, Zach Moss. 55% owned. So about half of you out there have availability for Moss. He's facing the Jets, which is always a great matchup. You interested in Moss?
I am. He's looked decent actually in this game so far today. We're into the third quarter now, and he has spelled Singletary a bit, 3 for 8, and I didn't see. I don't know if he had any catches, but he ran hard. He got a tough first down, so not bad. I mean, Singletary's got 10 for 32 so far at this point, so he's not doing much better efficient wise. I imagine they're going to try to work Zach Moss into this game here, so we will see. But yeah, I wouldn't mind doing some bid on him. I don't know how he'll end this game. You probably won't have to spend much on him. Maybe you can stash him for 5 or less, but I'm probably not spending too much more than that.
Yeah, same. I'm not super interested. But again, he's a running back, and they should be owned. So yeah, I'd put something in there of like 5% or so if you need a running back, but I'm not expecting a ton. So
we'll move on to wide receivers here next.
Yeah, we got Adam Humphries, only 9% owned, facing Pittsburgh, which is a tough matchup. Do you have any interest there?
Mind if you just kind of need like a depth guy that's got some floor. He's kind of in that Cole Beasley mold where you're not really expecting huge games or big plays from him, but he's going to come down with a lot of receptions. He's going to, get a lot of those third down looks, and he's just kind of a reliable target. He's competing with Henry, Jonnu Smith, and AJ Brown for touchdowns, so you're probably not expecting too many. I think he did get one last week, but yeah, I mean, I'm not bidding much on most of these guys here, but I wouldn't mind throwing probably around 5 on him if you wanted to get a safer receiver.
Yeah, I can't say I'm interested at all. I mean, he's going to have games every once in a while where he blows up. He's a talented guy, but he's too far down the pecking order on a run-heavy team. He had a good week, but so did everyone on Tennessee. So I'm not super interested. Maybe a buck or two if I was desperate, but if I'm that desperate, I'm in trouble, I think.
Yeah. Next up here, we have AJ Green, who kind of had a bit of a bounce back game after I think a lot of people sold off on him. 54% owned, and he's got Cleveland coming up here this week. And the stat line, 13.5 here and a half point. He had 11 targets, 8 catches, 96 yards.
Ah, boy. I would bid on him. I'd be willing to roster him, and I'd probably be willing to bet 12, 13% just to see, but he's someone that I'm not going to trust to start, and that could be an issue. I mean, he's got Cleveland's a good matchup, then he has Tennessee, tougher. Then he's at a bye week. Then he has Pittsburgh. I'm not going to want to start at Pittsburgh. So looking at a few weeks where I probably wouldn't be starting him, which sucks. But, we know the talent of AJ Green. We could be at the end of the season crafting a narrative of, he didn't play well early, but he was rusty. He had to form a relationship with Burrow, yada, yada, yada. Maybe that's the story that's going to end up being told. But I need to see it before I trust him and start him again. Unless I was in a situation where I really need upside or something. But he should be owned. Just I'd hesitate to start him. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I wouldn't mind picking him up and stashing him to see if he can put a couple more of these together. But yeah, I'm just kind of worried that's what the rest of this year is going to be. And he's just, you're never going to be confident enough to start him. But then you're always going to be second-guessing yourself if you should cut him. That I probably, unless I'm really desperate for upside at wide receiver, I'm probably not going to pick him back up.
That makes sense. We got Tim Patrick next. Only 18% owned, which is kind of surprising. He's got Kansas City. He's had a few good weeks in a row, Will. What do you think about Patrick?
Yeah, I think he's someone that just, the way he's producing probably needs to be owned at this point. He had his bye in the middle here, but 3 games in the last 4 weeks in half PPR, 12.5, 20.5, and then 12. So he's been over 100 yards in 2 of those 3 games, scored a touchdown in 2 of those 3 games. And most of that was without Locke. So I think he's a guy that he's a veteran receiver on that team. And I'm not bidding much on most of these guys, but he's a guy that you have to roster, I think.
Yeah, and he's a guy we've seen it from before. If you remember from a couple years ago, it was him and Foster were breaking out in Buffalo. I forget his first name.
Robert Foster.
Robert Foster. Him. Yeah, we owned him and then dropped him and owned him and dropped him. And it was like this back and forth thing for a long time. So you think I'd remember, but here we are. So we've seen it from him before. It's not like he's come out of nowhere, and he's had some good weeks in a row. Now Noah Fant was out. Is his workload going to be the same when Fant gets back? Probably not. Fant's a big part of that offense, but still a worthy flex guy. I'd be bidding on him, and I would, again, kind of like with AJ Green, be willing to pay 12-13% for him.
I'm probably around there. I just hate bidding up for wide receivers, so I'm probably not going to bid more than 10, but 5 to 10 is where I would bid. I would imagine, you probably can get away with a little bit more. But him and the next guy we'll talk about, Perriman, they're good guys, and I think they're guys. Patrick has done it a little more. Perriman 1 game in, to his Jets career now, but there's not too many weapons there. They're guys that you can pick up. I think you'd really need to be in dire straits to be starting them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give the stat line for Perriman, he had 8 targets, 4 receptions, 62 yards. So, he's fine. He didn't blow anyone away, but he was fine. He's got Buffalo this week, so that's definitely worrisome. Final 2 wide receivers, Will. We try to blow through these. We got Mike Williams and Djax, 45% and 25% owned. Interested in either of?
Yeah, these are guys I think I wouldn't mind bidding on, especially Mike Williams. He's looked good with Herbert. I think he's a guy that could really break out, and I would have rather picked him up here in the bye week and just stashed him. I have him in a few places to see. If you need to, you can start him this week. I think it could be a shootout. I maybe want to see it one more week with Herbert, but at this point, he's played well playing with Herbert, so I don't have any hesitation playing him. Jackson is probably going to be a guy that you're hoping for upside and really just to stay healthy, because he may be the only person healthy on that team going into this week. So yeah, I wouldn't mind bidding on both. Mike Williams, somewhere between 10 and 20. I think he could be a season-long guy the rest of the way here. Jackson, you're probably going to have to bid around 10, and you're hoping that, that he can stay healthy. When the rest of the weapons get back, I don't imagine you're going to get him for a while, but maybe the next game or two, he could be, usable upside against the Giants and Cowboys.
Yeah, I fall in line about the same there. So we'll go ahead and move on to the tight end position. Trey Burton finally appearing, 20% owned, which is kind of surprising to me, but on a bye week, had a big week. Interested in Burton?
No, not really. Most of these tight ends, I'm not super interested in either. I mean, I think Mo Cox wasn't healthy, and I don't know what is happening with Jack Doyle, but when they're all healthy, they'll all be used to a degree. I'm not thrilled about him. I'd rather start, some of the other guys we're going to talk about here over him.
Well, let's go ahead and blow through that list since you said you weren't interested in a lot of them. We got Darren Fells, Gronk, Richard Rodgers, and Logan Thomas. Who are you interested in out of that group?
I mean, I think Fells, I don't want to be, but he's produced and he's looked good. So I think you kind of have to acknowledge that he's getting targets. And we have to say, hey, Bill O'Brien's gone and Deshaun Watson's looking pretty good the last 2 weeks here without Bill O'Brien. I know they didn't win this week, but he put up some numbers. Fells is getting targets. Gronk, you could tell watching that game, they were trying to get him involved. So if they continue and he stays healthy, he's interesting. On the cheap though, Richard Rodgers and Logan Thomas, I think, are two guys that you could pick up and play if you really need to. Logan Thomas has been doing it all year for bad offense, but aside from McLaurin, there's really not much there. You have Gibson, but the receiving options, I think Thomas can be played. And we've talked about it on this podcast a lot that the Eagles are banged up. Richard Rodgers is your tight end one, and the Eagles love to use tight ends in the offense. He was worked in at the end of the game when Ertz went down. He's a guy you might be able to scoop for pretty much free, and he could be playable here the next 2 weeks because I don't foresee Goddard coming back until after the bye, and Ertz is probably after that.
Oh boy, I tend to agree, but it scares me to death. I think
Not fun.
I'd rather take a shot on Logan Thomas against Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
Given the matchup, and he's young and Rodgers isn't. We just have a long history of Rodgers not really doing anything. But yeah, I mean, everything you said makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's got to catch the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's going to wrap up the tight end. We got some defensive streamers. Will, you want to touch on them?
Yeah, so we got the Eagles against the Giants and the Giants against the Eagles. This could be a similar situation to the Washington and New York game this week here, where two offenses that can produce but can have some turnovers. So you're kind of your boomer bust play there, right? You're not expecting them to stop the other team from scoring, but you're hoping to get a couple turnovers. The Chargers are one I think that you can get. They're only 29% owned against Jacksonville. And while they're still pretty hurt, they still have a lot of talent on that team. And Minshew has been turnover prone a bit this year. He's been fun to watch and can put up some scores, but he's turned it over, especially last week. So Chargers seem like a pretty good play this week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree. Chargers have been a talented defense for a long time. They're just dealing with a lot of injuries, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Constantly. But yeah, I mean, solid matchup. Again, the Eagles and Giants, like you said, could both be good matchups. I could also see both of them getting absolutely blown up. So it's hard to say. I mean, probably more so the Giants getting blown up than the Eagles, but it could go either way. But yeah, those are three solid options if you've been streaming the position.
That'll wrap us up today.
Yeah, that will. So tune in on Thursday for our start sits for week 7. Until then, trust your board.